What if we told you that your destiny, professionally, personally, it's not really determined by the challenges you face, but maybe by the story you choose to tell about them?
It's a fascinating thought, isn't it?
Yeah, imagine like a room full of brilliant leaders. They get the exact same set of facts. One group, they see these insurmountable odds and just stop, completely stalled.
While the other group looks at the same data and sees limitless opportunity, and they just sprint towards success.
That paradox, that's really the core of modern leadership, I think. And today we're doing a deep dive into, well, an ancient leadership case study to kind of uncover the blueprint behind it.
We're digging into that story of the 12 spies from Numbers 13 and 14.
Exactly. Our mission here is to give you, the listener, a shortcut to understanding how perspective, not just the raw data shapes, well, pretty much every major outcome.
We need to sort of identify the tripwires, right? Understand why fear can hijack critical professional decisions.
And figure out how to turn those, overwhelming obstacles into a launch pad for real, undeniable growth.
It's honestly one of the most powerful narratives out there for dissecting decision-making under pressure. Because fundamentally, it holds up a mirror.
A mirror? How so?
It holds a mirror to the modern manager, the executive, the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You. You are always confronted with data that has two sides, right? The good news and the risks.
Ah, okay.
The real question is, which side gets the microphone? Which story do you amplify?
Okay, so let's set the scene then. Where does the story begin?
It starts at a place called Kadesh Barnea. The Israelites, they've journeyed out of slavery in Egypt.
Right.
And now they're camped right on the border, the edge, the precipice of Canaan, this promised land.
The land flowing with milk and honey, that famous description.
Exactly. This is the moment. They're supposed to transition from, wandering in the desert to actually conquering and settling.
So Moses steps in here.
He does. And acting with, I think, real strategic foresight, he commissions 12 leaders, high-level people.
One from each tribe, like their A-team.
Essentially, yeah. They're best guys. Their mission, to scout the territory. The sources were actually very specific about the briefing.
Okay, what was it?
It was classic reconnaissance. Assess the land itself, figure out if the people there are strong or weak, few or many. Check out the towns, are they like open camps or properly fortified? And, is the soil fertile? Basic intel gathering.
Okay, but here's the crucial bit, the detail that often gets missed, I think. The mandate.
Right. What was the point of the mission?
It was intended to inform their strategy, how they would enter and occupy this land that, remember, was already theirs by promise.
So not a vote.
Absolutely not meant to be a referendum on whether or not they should even go in. That decision was, in theory, already made.
Precisely. They were gathering tactical intelligence, logistics, how to, not asking for, a democratic consensus on their destiny.
Okay, so they go off, these 12 leaders. How long were they gone?
40 days. And when they returned, well, the evidence they presented was just staggering.
Tangible stuff.
Right. Oh, yeah. Irrefutable, tangible proof of the land's abundance.
Right, the sources really emphasize this point. These massive clusters of grapes, so heavy, it took 2 men to carry just one cluster on a pole.
Pomegranates, figs. The raw data, the facts on the ground, showed the land wasn't just good. It was unbelievably bountiful.
Exactly as advertised. Milk and honey delivered.
So if we just pause right there for a second, the objective facts settled. The promise is real, the land is fertile, the opportunity is immense. Crystal clear.
But there's always a but.
There always is, isn't there?
Yeah.
Especially in leadership. When you go searching for potential, you inevitably find peril alongside it. He saw the abundance, yes, but they also saw, unknown dangers, overwhelming obstacles. And they started hearing those whispers of impossibility.
And this is the pivot. This is where everything changes. The facts are identical for all 12 spies, but what they did with those facts, well, it separated them forever, didn't it?
Completely. Let's talk about the majority report first. The voice of 10 of those 12 spies. What did they choose to focus on?
They went straight for the problem.
Immediately. They confirm, the land is rich, and then they deploy what the sources actually call an evil report. It sounds dramatic, but that's the term used.
An evil report. What did it say?
They reported that the people living there are powerful. The cities are, and I quote, fortified and very large. Then the kicker. They identified the most terrifying aspect, the presence of the Anakites.
Ah, the giants.
The giants, whom they correctly identified as, giants. Big, intimidating figures.
And that's where their analysis it stopped being strategic, didn't it? It became purely defeatist.
Totally. Their conclusion wasn't about how to overcome the giants. It was a purely human calculation based on fear.
Wow.
We can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are.
They didn't compare the giants to their goal or their god or the promise. They compared the giants only to themselves and found themselves wanting.
And what's fascinating linguistically is the precise word used in the Hebrew text right at that turning point. It's often translated as nevertheless or but. The Hebrew is apheski.
FSK, what does that signify?
It operates like a verbal lens flare. It's the exact moment when the objective facts, the grapes, the promise, the fertility, are completely washed out, overwhelmed by the subjective fear of the giants.
Wow.
The problem, the obstacle, suddenly became more real, more significant, more compelling than the promise itself. That little phrase marks the hijack.
But thankfully, not everyone saw it through that paralyzed lens. Caleb and Joshua, how did they manage to filter out all that panic, all that fear?
Well, Caleb acted immediately. He saw the panic spreading. He literally silenced the people and declared the alternate perspective.
What did he say?
Critically, it wasn't based on their human strength. It was based on capacity tied to the promise. He said, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it.
Wow. Certainty.
Absolute conviction. And Joshua shared it. They were united in this.
So the contrast is it's stark, isn't it? 10 spies see insurmountable threats and conclude, impossible, retreat.
While Caleb and Joshua see the exact same dangers, the same giants, the same fortified cities, but their conclusion is unwavering, victorious, advance.
They framed the challenge within, a larger context, a bigger story.
Exactly. The context of a guiding power, of the promise itself, not just their own human limitations or fears.
That really is the lesson for anyone listening right now, isn't it? Same input, same facts, but entirely different interpretations leading to drastically different outcomes.
Absolutely. Let's really dissect the anatomy of these two perspectives, these two lenses. Starting with the lens of fear, how does it distort things so badly?
Okay, the 10 spies. What defined their fearful lens?
It starts with a fixation on the obstacles. They just locked onto what they couldn't do, what seemed too big, too hard. And that focus led immediately to paralysis by analysis.
Right. The report wasn't designed to find a way through the problems.
No, it was designed to justify inaction, to make staying put seem like the only logical choice.
And their description, it went beyond just reporting facts, didn't it? It moved into exaggeration, hyperbole.
Oh, absolutely. They shifted from objective reporting there are giants to telling a story, a subjective, fear-filled interpretation. And the story they told was utterly self-defeating.
What was that key line again, the really devastating one?
Is this: we seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them.
Wow, we seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes.
That's the critical part. It reveals the first act of a fear-based leader or a fear-based team. They deform their own identity first. They shrink themselves down.
They didn't just assess the enemy. They projected their internal feeling of smallness onto the situation.
Exactly. They projected their grasshopper complex, that a sense of inadequacy, of being tiny and powerless, onto their enemies. It completely distorted the reality of the situation. It wasn't an objective assessment anymore.
That is such a relatable concept, though. I mean, if you feel like a grasshopper walking into a salary negotiation or pitching a huge new client, you've kind of already lost, haven't you? Before a word is spoken.
You really have. The external problem might be big, sure, but the problem they created internally, that self-definition of being a grasshopper, that was existential. It guaranteed failure.
And did that fear make them forget things?
Completely. That self-inflicted fear caused them to ignore every single past victory, every past provision. They forgot the parting of the Red Sea, the daily manna from heaven, water from a rock, all those massive interventions.
Yeah.
Their present fear blinded them to past faithfulness, past successes. It convinced them that whatever power or capacity they had relied on before was suddenly inexplicably insufficient for this new, maybe slightly bigger challenge.
That forgetfulness. That's a huge trap for modern organizations, too, isn't it? We face a new challenge and forget we've overcome huge things before.
Massive. It's a recurring pitfall. We get amnesia about our own capabilities when fear takes hold.
Okay, let's flip that around now. Joshua and Caleb, same giants, same big fortified walls. What was the mechanism of their lens, the lens of faith?
Well, crucially, their conviction wasn't based on, magical thinking or ignoring the facts. They were realists. They saw the giants. They acknowledged the difficulty.
So they weren't naive.
Not at all. But their conviction, their starting point, was rooted in the explicit promise God had made about the land. That was their anchor. So they immediately reframed the context.
How did they reframe it?
They declared that while the giants were real, yes, their protection is gone, but the Lord is with us. See the difference? They acknowledged the threat, but immediately countered it with a greater reality, divine presence and backing.
So they didn't minimize the challenge, they just magnified the capacity available to them. It's like faith-filled realism.
That's a perfect way to put it. Faith-filled realism. They saw the Anakites, the giants, but their conclusion wasn't, oh no, it was action-oriented. Let us go up at once and take possession.
And think about the courage that took.
Oh, immense courage. What's often overlooked is just how hard it is to stand against the tide. You've got 10 out of 12 highly respected leaders, basically 83% of the reconnaissance team, the majority of the organization's trusted advisors declaring failure is inevitable.
Resisting that kind of consensus, that groupthink, that's tough.
It requires immense conviction. They had to resist the emotional contagion, the overwhelming pressure to conform. They were willing to stand almost alone, anchored only by that promise. That takes guts.
Speaking of standing alone, let's talk about the consequences. What actually happened to the generation that listened to the 10 spies?
Right.
The ones who chose fear.
The consequence was, well, catastrophic and immediate. Because of their collective unbeliefs, which the sources flat out call rebellion.
Rebellion, not just fear.
The sources frame it as rebellion against the promise, against the direction they were given. Because of that, that entire generation, everyone aged 20 and over, with the explicit exceptions of Joshua and Caleb, was condemned.
Condemned to what?
To wander in the wilderness for 40 years. 1 year for each day the spies had scouted the land. Until every single one of them died out.
40 years. Wow.
Their destiny wasn't just delayed, it was completely canceled for them. It was deferred entirely to the next generation.
So a journey that should have taken, what, weeks? Maybe a couple of months?
Turned into a 4-decade funeral march through the desert. Their perspective didn't just affect their strategy, it literally determined their lifespan and their destiny.
That ancient story offers some really profound warnings then, pitfalls that are just utterly relevant for us today, aren't they?
Absolutely. The parallels are striking. The first modern pitfall we see is the contagion of fear.
How does that play out?
Well, the sources say the entire community wept and grumbled because of the 10 spies report. It shows how just 1 or 2 negative, fear-driven voices can spread through a team, an organization, like a virus. It shapes the whole culture, grinds innovation to a halt.
Yeah, negativity is incredibly infectious, and that leads right into the second pitfall, which you mentioned earlier, groupthink.
Exactly. The Israelites succumbed to the perceived consensus. The fear became the accepted reality. In fact, they got so caught up in the collective panic and anger.
They threatened to do what?
They threatened to stone Joshua and Caleb for daring to dissent, for offering a different, more hopeful perspective.
Wow. So when organizations, maybe less violently, but still punish or silence the bearers of optimistic, solution-oriented news.
They shut down innovation. They guarantee dysfunctional decisions because only the fear-based perspective is allowed a voice. It's incredibly dangerous.
And there's a third pitfall you mentioned.
Yes, and it's maybe the most insidious, the seduction of nostalgia.
Nostalgia, how does that fit in?
When the future looks terrifying, when the giants loom large, when the challenges seem insurmountable, what did the people cry out? Let's go back to Egypt.
Back to slavery, seriously.
Seriously. They suddenly forgot the actual whips, the forced labor, the misery. All they could remember was the perceived safety and predictability of their bondage. Egypt, horrible as it was, seemed better than facing the giants.
That desire to return to familiar bondage, even if it was awful, instead of facing necessary change.
That is resistance in its purest, most primal form. And leaders need to watch out for it constantly. People will cling to a known discomfort over an unknown, potentially better future if fear takes hold.
Okay, let's really zoom in on that resistance idea. Let's bring this right into, say, your boardroom or your team meeting. Think about a modern case study. Maybe the corporate merger. How does this play out?
Oh, it's a perfect parallel. You announce a major merger. Okay, what happens? The 10 spies team immediately sees the difficulties, right? Job risks, culture clashes, the nightmare of integrating 2 different tech stacks.
Yeah, the giants of change loom large.
Exactly. And their reaction, they resist the new training. They might withhold key information, productivity tanks. They are paralyzed by those giants, and subconsciously maybe, they are actively trying to get back to their old Egypt, the way things were before the merger.
Okay, but then you have the Joshua and Caleb team. Same announcement, same facts. What do?
They acknowledge the difficulty. Sure, they're not blind. But they pivot immediately. They start looking for the opportunities within the disruption.
Like what?
like new markets opening up, chances to cross-train and pick up new skills, maybe even new leadership roles emerging in the bigger combined entity. They proactively engage, ask questions, volunteer for integration teams.
And the result.
Faster, smoother, more cohesive integration. They see the milk and honey potential of the merger, not just the giants in the way.
Let's take another one, the entrepreneurial venture. Launching something new.
Classic scenario. You've got a new product, maybe a new service, ready to launch into a competitive market. The 10 spies mentality kicks in immediately. Oh, the market's saturated. Funding is tight. The barriers to entry are just too high. Those established players are giants.
And that mindset leads to
Procrastinating on the launch, maybe scaling back the ambition, tweaking the business plan endlessly. Paralysis by analysis again. Ultimately, maybe even abandoning the venture because the walls just seem too high, the giant's too strong. They convince themselves it's impossible before they even truly try.
So why does that fear interpretation seem to win out so often in these scenarios? It feels like the default sometimes.
Well, honestly, because the fear interpretation requires less immediate effort. It feels safer in the short term. It allows you to retreat, to play defense, to stay in the familiar zone, even if it's Egypt.
Right. It avoids the risk, the potential pain of failure.
Whereas the Caleb mindset, the Joshua mindset,
Yeah.
that demands effort. It demands agility, finding unique value propositions, relentlessly focusing on the promise or the opportunity despite the obstacles. It asks the tough questions. Okay, if the market is saturated, what specific weakness of those giants can we exploit? What niche can we own?
It requires resilience, adaptability, constant forward motion.
Exactly. Which is exhausting, no doubt. But it's the only path that actually leads to the promised land, to achieving the goal.
Okay. So if the facts really are only half the story, maybe even less, and the interpretation, the perspective, is the key, how do we actively choose the right interpretation? How do we build that muscle? Because it feels like a muscle.
It absolutely is a muscle. And the necessity of choice is the ultimate actionable takeaway here. Perspective isn't just something that happens to you. It's not a passive reaction. It's an active, intentional leadership skill. You must intentionally choose to filter reality through the lens of promise and possibility, not let it default to the lens of paralyzing fear.
So how do we make that practical? You mentioned a tool earlier.
Yes, something very concrete. Let's call it perspective journaling. It's a simple structure to use whenever you're facing a significant challenge, whether it's organizational or personal.
Okay.
3 steps.
Okay, walk us through it.
Step 1. Describe the facts, neutral. Just list the raw objective data of the situation. No emotion, no spin. Sales are down 15%. A major client left. We need to cut the budget. Just the facts.
Got it. Neutral observation. Step 2.
Step 2. Write down the 10 spies interpretation. Fear-driven. Be honest. Document the immediate fears that pop up, the worst-case scenarios, the feelings of overwhelm, inadequacy. Acknowledge the grasshopper complex if it's there. We're going to lose more clients. My job is on the line. We'll never recover. Get it all out.
Okay. Acknowledge the fear narrative and then the critical pivot. Step 3.
Step 3. Write the Joshua and Caleb interpretation, opportunity-focused. Now you take those exact same facts from step 1 and you consciously reframe them. Focus on the available resources you still have, the knowledge you can leverage, the potential for growth or learning within the challenge. What opportunities does this difficulty create?
Let's try that with our merger example again. Fact. 2 companies merging, 20% redundancy in 2 departments.
Okay, 10 spies interpretation. My job is definitely at risk. They hate our company culture. I need to update my resume now. Total panic.
Right. Now, the Caleb interpretation of that same fact, 20% redundancy means?
It means there's a massive opportunity to reorganize and redefine the remaining 80% of roles. It means the new combined organization has specific needs, and maybe the chaos creates space. This is my chance to step up, showcase the unique skills I have that the new organization desperately needs. How can I turn this disruption into a promotion or a more interesting role?
That simple 3-step practice, just writing it down, that feels like the difference between reacting with panic and leading with intention.
It's exactly that. It shifts you from reactive caution, which leads to stagnation, to proactive, deliberate action. It transforms a moment that feels like a crisis into a moment of intentional leadership choice.
So the ultimate lesson from Kadesh Barnea, echoing down through millennia, is timeless, isn't it? Your destiny, your outcomes, they're not determined by the size of the giants you face,
Not at all.
but by the perspective you choose to adopt when you look at them. So we urge you, everyone listening this week, ask yourself honestly, in your current role, maybe in that difficult personal challenge you're facing, which spy are you channeling right now? Which lens is really shaping your critical decisions?
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Remember, the source material specifically highlights that the negative report, the evil report from the 10 spies, was so powerful because it was a story designed to cause terror, designed to lead to stagnation.
A story designed to cause terror.
Yeah. So the question for you is, what is the single recurring self-limiting evil report, that fear-based story that you need to consciously identify and silence within yourself or maybe within your team today? What story do you need to stop telling so you can finally take possession of the promise, the opportunity that's lying right there before you?